Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Malinoff. Mark Seuss is no longer with us in the broadcast booth, or the studio, however you want to call it. I said it wrong. Shame on me, but it's just going to be me for now, for the foreseeable future. But let's get into it, because we got some new games to talk about. All-Star break is officially over. We had some NBA games. We had LeBron officially in playoff mode. We had James Harden's 30-point streak continue just barely. We had the Warriors barely hold up the Sacramento Kings. The Bucks hold off the Celtics off a missed game winner by Kyrie Irving. And there's going to be some other stuff we're going to talk about in there as well, just about the future of also the LA Lakers and how they can, if LeBron playoff mode is enough to handle the entire season, rest of the season that is, and get them into a place where they can win a playoff spot. Because that is, in the Western Conference, that's a tall glass order compared to what he used to do in the Eastern Conference. And also tonight, DeMar DeRozan returns to Toronto. We'll get more of that. Karl Anthony Towns was involved in a car accident. We'll also talk about that. And Space Jam 2 was announced, so we'll talk about that as well. But I think first things first, we got to talk about the Lakers and their comeback win against the Houston Rockets. Basically, they were the only lead they had going into the fourth quarter was a 17-16 win, or 17-16 lead against the Rockets in the first quarter. They were down the rest of the game. And through that, I was just questioning, like, is this playoff mode thing even going to be enough to win this game against the Rockets? Then Harden struggled in the second half. And he barely scored 30 points. Got 30 points exactly, actually. He had about 26 points, about 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, something around there. So it was different for sure. But overall, I will say that with the Lakers winning, it was a lot thanks to Harden and Paul both fouling out at the end of the game, helping with that win. And LeBron with that gorgeous dunk at the end there too to make a statement, basically at the expense of the Rockets. But with both your best players on one team, Paul and Harden, both get fouled out before the game ends. Harden with 30 points, Chris Paul with 23 points. That's going to dampen your team, because then you're left with PJ Tucker at small forward, who in 34 minutes only got 3 points. Eric Gordon with 14 points. I mean, there were some guys that helped a little bit, but it was all Paul and Harden. And then you look at the other side of the spectrum. LeBron James had 29 points, and then Brandon Ingram comes alive with 27 points. I mean, they both had double-doubles and rebounds as well. But then you see Kuzma with 18 points, and that's small for him, all things considered, how well he's been performing. So the Lakers have a better supporting cast for LeBron than Harden has with the Rockets, in my opinion. I mean, he does have Chris Paul, understandably. But after that, I mean, Capella's pretty underrated himself. But PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon's getting there. He's all right. Austin Rivers, And it just Kenneth Faried's being okay overall. But I just have to say, like, Brandon Ingram, Kuzma, McGahee, Rondo, they all been really doing good stuff for LeBron James. And then when Tyson Chandler plays, he only played 6 minutes. When he first signed with the Lakers, he'd been playing pretty decently well. So all things considered, good there. But overall, Lakers win. LeBron's first official quote-unquote game or playoff mode game he's been in this season is a win. So obviously it's off to a good start. But Harden had not so nice things to say about the officiating. And coming from a guy that averages about 11 free throws a game and a guy that's had 20 free throws a game, roughly 20 free throws in a game and sometimes more compared to that, him complaining about the refs is an oddity just because of the fact that he gets a lot of breaks from the officials, some no traveling calls and so on and so forth. But he has a problem with Scott Foster. He's officiated multiple Rockets games and multiple Harden games for many years now. And Harden never has liked him, supposedly. In an interview after the game, he said he should never call Rocket games again. And I understand, if it's a continuation of just, him kind of eyeing him and calling calls on him that's normally called and whatnot, I would understand his situation. But I don't know, just blaming officials after a comeback defeat just screams whining to me. But he might have seen some calls that shouldn't have been called that I did not see. I could be wrong in my circumstances, in my opinions, but regardless, I think Harden just needed to come away with more clutch shots that he's used to having. Because he usually just drains shots on threat, but I saw a lot of misses. I saw some air balls from him. He struggled throughout this entire game. Yes, he still got 30 points, but when you shoot that high volume of shots, you're going to get that many points in the long run. It's only a matter of time, right? So that's how I saw it in the mix. But LeBron showing why he's still the best player in the NBA. LeVar Ball be damned. But regardless, I think it's going to lead down to the fact that even though the Lakers are in 10th as of right now, they're behind the Kings and the Clippers for a spot in the playoffs. But it's not just those two fighting for a spot in the Western Conference playoffs. The Clippers have 32 wins. The Kings have 30 wins. The Lakers have 29 wins. But ahead of the Clippers is San Antonio with 33 wins. Utah has 32 wins. They have 25 losses. That's why they're ahead so much. Houston has 33 wins, and now with this loss is 25 losses. These are all right for the taking. Up to 5th place in the Western Conference is right for the taking, honestly. It's a very close race. And we got a while before the season ends, so I think it's all possible for this to actually go down as a possible, these 5, some of these teams might stay in their positions, of course, but the Lakers aren't done yet. And if you go out of the playoffs in a one game, you can get back in the playoffs in the next game. That's how close this is. It could change in one series, in one game, in one day type of thing. So don't count the Lakers out just yet, especially with LeBron James, of course. But again, it's anyone's conference, really, except in the top 4 where it just seems like it's a runaway. Portland has 35 wins, but that just seems too insurmountable to really lose out on a playoff spot. Oklahoma City, yeah. Denver Nuggets, yes. Golden State Warriors, obviously. They just seem to have their playoffs already scheduled, basically, in this situation. But regardless, the bottom of the Western Conference looks to be anyone's game. And and then you look at the Eastern Conference, and it's just after the Celtics with 37 wins, then it's the Brooklyn Nets with 30 wins. And I know we've beaten this with a hammer by now, but just the Eastern Conference, if I'm in the Western Conference and I have 30 wins or 29 wins, and I would be in the playoffs as I was in the Eastern Conference, but in the Western Conference, I'm on the outside looking in, I would be pretty disappointed or upset with how the playoff format is made. I understand the 8 best teams from one conference and 8 best teams from another conference, but would it be so bad if there was the first 16 seeded teams? Regardless of conference? I know that would really take away what conference stands for, but maybe just make it in divisions. Just keep the divisions the way they are. You could do like the conference scheduling still, but not have it based off of where the playoffs are, because you're going to see a lot of teams that are going to have losing records in the playoffs on the Eastern Conference side, and then teams who have winning records on the Western Conference side not make the playoffs. So if my idea ever went down, this would be the first 16. Milwaukee, Toronto, Golden State, Denver, Indiana, Oklahoma City, Philadelphia, Boston, Portland, Houston, Utah, San Antonio, Clippers, Sacramento, Brooklyn, Lakers, Minnesota, and Charlotte. Those would be the top 16 teams. It would kind of be like the March Madness tournament, in where Charlotte would play Milwaukee, who is the best team in the NBA, and so on and so forth. But that would give the Lakers a playoff spot. That would give the Kings a playoff spot. That would give the Timberwolves a playoff spot. Not the Pistons or so on and so forth. I think that would be fair in the long run. Maybe also give the lottery a fair shot for the Eastern Conference as well, because if you try to tank, you sometimes will not be able to tank because of how weak the conference is. But I think that would just have to do a lot of remodeling about how the league works and how scheduling works and all that stuff. So I understand why they'd be hesitant to do that, but it's just an idea. I think it would make it better, but I could be wrong. But granted, that's just how I saw of it. And with that, we're going to go to the Bucks and Celtics game. And Kyrie Irving was one shot away from taking the lead in buzzer beater and beating the Milwaukee Bucks, first place Milwaukee Bucks. But despite Kyrie Irving's 22-point effort, Al Horford's 21 and 17, Jason Tatum's 17 and 10, it wasn't enough, as Giannis's 30 and 13 night was too much, and the Milwaukee Bucks hold on to this win, 98-97, still an elite team in the Eastern Conference, not just in the Eastern Conference, but in the league itself, and Giannis still fighting for that MVP award, and he might get it, honestly. I know Harden looks like he's going to be he's the front runner, but I don't know. I'm really liking what Giannis is doing right now. And then let's go to let's look at the other games. Sixers beat the Heat. Cavs win a game, but they beat the Suns, so it's consolation. Trailblazers hold on to their playoff spot with a victory over the Nets. And then the Warriors barely beat the Sacramento Kings 125-123. Kind of shows how the Kings are still a very good competition in the Western Conference for sure. And Marvin Bagley, the second pick in the draft, still looking to be like a good pick in the long run with a 28.14 rebound performance against the defending champions. Not a bad stat line for a rookie, absolutely, and a sixth man. So I'm really liking what they're doing over there in Sacramento. But, of course, the Warriors are just too much. As for today, though, we will see how everything goes. But we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about today's games and the importance of some of these games. We'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We just finished about yesterday's games. Now let's go into today's games because we have an interesting one. We have DeMar DeRozan returning to Toronto to face the Toronto Raptors, as that is interesting to say the least. Because this is, I believe, the first meeting they go into Toronto since the trade for Kawhi Leonard. Jeez, I don't know why I couldn't say that. But, yes, this is definitely going to be interesting. Toronto is the 7.5-point favorites. And looking at the preview of this is maybe in DeMar DeRozan's mind a must-win game, or maybe not even that, just a proven he was worth keeping over Leonard kind of thing, which is hard to say because Leonard's arguably one of the best players in the NBA. So, but DeMar DeRozan's no slouch himself. Obviously, in the long run, I still believe that DeRozan's better than Kyle Lowry. So Lowry kind of got lucky in this situation, getting a better player in the long run. But man, this is a statement game, if anything, for DeMar DeRozan, who feels kind of cheated after losing to the getting traded and losing his spot in the Toronto Raptors, who he said he loved and all those other things. But I guess he's also happy about getting out of those taxes. So, it's all about constellation, right? But if I had to pick a winner of this game, I think the Raptors are just going to overwhelm the Spurs. I know the Spurs are still doing pretty well, all things considered, but the Raptors are 10 wins greater. They're 10 games ahead of the Spurs in the long, like if you look at it league wide. So you just got to give it to the Raptors and how well they've been playing. One of the most interesting games that's not getting enough recognition is the Magic and Bulls, because the Magic are on a 5-game winning streak, the second highest winning streak in the NBA right now, behind the Raptors at 6. And with that, I look at this as a Magic have a shot to make the Eastern Conference playoffs here, people. It's a possibility. It's not impossible. It's actually quite possible. They're taking advantage of a win streak. They need to keep this going. It could work. And overall, I see this as more of an opportunity for the Magic to really edge their name into the Eastern Conference playoffs. And if they do, it'll be great for them, because I think the bottom of the Eastern Conference is wide open and ready for the taking. I mean, look at the Pistons and Hornets are fighting for spots up there, and they're right there with them. So I think that the Magic should be not looked over rather than, be careful for, really. So that's how I see it, at least. I'm really looking forward to this. They're facing a very weak team in the Bulls, so they should continue their winning streak to 6. And that's just how it sounds like it's good to go. So that's that game between the Bulls and the Magic. We also have Anthony Davis, who's supposedly going to play against the Pacers, but still really unknown how that's all going down. There's a lot of question marks about this, but who knows what's really going to happen when it comes down to it, when it comes down to game time. Because the owner of the Pelicans is trying to get them to waive off the fines to sit Davis for the rest of the season. So that's an interesting aspect of it. Obviously, I don't think they're going to do it, but I think the Pelicans are going to bench him regardless, take that $2.5 million hit, or 2.7 or how much ever it is, and just sit him out and get a great trade offer out of it, get some good stuff out of it. And speaking of the draft, I mean, the NBA is proposing lowering the draft age from 19 to 18. So one and done might be coming to an end, back to high school seniors back into the game. So we'll see how that goes. But as for games today, going back to that is the two main ones. Also, we have some news about the Timberwolves and Knicks, mainly because it's about Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns was in a car accident recently, and He's questionable for this game against the Knicks. Per the Timberwolves public relations staff on Twitter, interim head coach Ryan Saunders announced Towns was in an accident Thursday while driving to the airport, but he was able to fly to New York. He didn't take part in the team's Friday morning shoot-around, though. But remember, Carlton Towns did play 11 minutes in the All-Star game and scored 11 points. So he had an all right All-Star break himself, but I think it's probably smart to keep him bent, to not play him this game against the Knicks. It's an easy team. It's a winnable game, a very winnable game. And if he's in a car accident, you don't really know the severity of it. Let's just play it safe. I don't blame him. It's a smart move. But yeah, for those who don't know, Carlton Towns was in a car accident on Thursday. And apparently he was able to fly still, as reports say. So we'll see how that affects the rest of how this, maybe not this, maybe just see how this weekend goes, basically. I think that's mainly what's going to be the big thing here. Also, that is basically all the interesting games. I mean, we got Clippers and Grizzlies, but yeah, we got Nuggets against the Mavericks. Nuggets are probably going to win. Jazz, Thunder is probably the most interesting one, based off two playoff teams. But looking into the weekend, we got the Pelicans and Lakers. Talk about some stories here. We have the Lakers, who almost were in a mutiny because of immunity because of the fact that a lot of those players were about to get traded for Anthony Davis and multiple first-round picks to play with LeBron. And I thought that was honestly the beginning of the end of the time, because knowing you're expendable like that would put a damper on your play. Put a damper on my play. Like, it really doesn't matter how hard I play. I'm still going to be traded for somebody else. There's a lot of doubtful mentalities going into the Lakers locker room, besides LeBron James, of course, because the Lakers were offering Lonzo, they were offering Ingram, they were offering Kuzma, they were offering Hart, they were offering multiple first-round picks for Davis, but the Pelicans wanted 4 first-round picks. They asked for something too much, apparently, to the Lakers, so that all folded up. This also gives the Celtics an opportunity to trade their roster for Anthony Davis during the summer, so this leaves a lot of questions to be answered when it comes down to the offseason. But honestly, with all of the other players feeling expendable, it would hurt their mentality, hurt their mindset. But I guess it didn't, because they're still playing at a high level. And we'll see how the rest of the season goes. Will they think they'll still be expendable? Who knows? But I think it's all going to come down to the facts that they were almost traded. All of them were almost traded for one guy. So that, and it looks like Julius Randle is also going to be traded in the summer. So it looks like Pelicans are going to be in a full rebuild mode. So that's just how things are going to go for the time being. But that is not the only fun game on this weekend. We got the Rockets and the Warriors on Saturday as well. Harden's 30-point streak is on the line once again. And it's getting more and more interesting because he barely got to 30 against the Lakers. Now he's facing a very challenging matchup against the defending champion and possibly future champion Golden State Warriors. That's what everyone's been saying. That's what everyone's been predicting. So with that, and it's all questionable how everything's going to go. Is Harden going to try to get that 30-point streak alive? The question is, like, I understand that it kind of matters to him. You can see him playing hard to get that 30 points, but is it the worst thing in the world for him to lose that streak? Because it's already an NBA record. Like, I mean, if it helps the team win, then keep that streak going, sure. But overall, you're looking all along lines of, like, just keep your team competing. Keep your team in the playoffs, because that's the age-old question of Harden being criticized. Is he a pat statter? Is he only worried about his stats and MVP awards, or is he worried about championships? That's always been the concern for people ever since he started in Houston, because of the fact that he shoots at an absurd high volume that it gets to a point where, like, is it like he's only caring about those stats? We don't know. I hope he's pushing for a playoff run. I hope he's pushing for a championship, but we will see how things turn out. But he's also looks like he's pushing pretty hard for a MVP award again. So we'll see how all that goes down. And bottom line for that is basically Harden has a lot cut out for him tomorrow night against the Warriors. But we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we will talk about Space Jam 2. And the release date is officially announced. We're having the movie. LeBron James is going to be in it. We're all excited. I'm going to tell you all about Space Jam and then my love for Space Jam right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Just previewed our Saturday games, our weekend games that are most entertaining to watch. Now, some fun news, for the NBA at least, as LeBron James is going to star in Space Jam 2, and the official release date has been announced. It's going to be in the year 2021, though. It's going to be a little while from here. I don't think they've begun shooting. They might have begun shooting. I'm not sure how that all was going down. But it's coming in July of 2021. That's the official release date is July 16th, 2021. So the first Space Jam was based in the time in where Michael Jordan was playing baseball for the Chicago White Sox minor league team, and this was basically his this is how he returned in theory. I'm not sure it was supposed to be like that, but the movie was released in 1996, and he had to return in 1995. And at the end of Space Jam 1, it was he was back in number 45 in 1995. It was 1995. It was the first game back as a Bull, and it just seemed like the fictional story of how he returned to basketball. That he played with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all these other Looney Tune characters and beat a couple of Monstars in a game to save their freedom and his freedom, because apparently he was going to be a slave too. Which, in retrospect, how it was portrayed, him all chained up and playing basketball and all this stuff, seemed kind of bad in theory, but I guess maybe not. I'm not sure. I didn't even think about it until just now. That kind of sounds bad. But regardless, that's how it all went. I love the movie personally. I thought it was great. Bill Murray was awesome in it at the end, don't really know why an old man would, why the Looney Tunes were like, yeah, you can play with this, Bill Murray. I'd be like, what, Bill Murray, you're 50. Go away. You can be on the bench. Or if you get the ball, just pass it to somebody else. Don't hold on to the ball. Do not shoot the ball. Do not dribble with the ball. You're going to be an outlet for somebody else. Just stop, Bill Murray. But, again, he wore a backwards hat, so I guess they gave him powers of being a great basketball player. Because turning your hat around like that makes it great at arm wrestling, makes it great at baseball when you need to pitch a really fast pitch or catch a Pokemon like your Ash Ketchum, or so on and so forth. Anyways, so I love that movie. I thought it was great having the animation and real life things, and I think that was his real kids in the movie. I could be wrong, though. I'm not entirely positive on that one. I thought the movie was great. Like I said, the hole-in-one magnet was great. Him getting sucked into the golf hole, and Bill Murray and Larry Bird's reaction to him being stuck in there. Not that they were just like frozen. They weren't just like, I would be in abject terror, honestly, because my friend Michael Jordan just got sucked into a very small hole, and where his bones should have just disintegrated and his body shouldn't have fit in there and he could have died. Looking at it in a depressing way, but it's a factual way. But again, I thought the whole movie was great. It just as a kid, it's just one of those childhood movies you always look at and go, oh, I wish they made a second one. Well, no, it's a reality. 2021, so a good, well over 20 years, almost 20 years after. No, actually, no, it's well over 20 years after the original release, 1996. Now we're 2021. So that's how that's working. So that's actually 25 years afterwards. 25 years after the original Space Jam movie. That's incredible. Didn't think we'd have to wait 25 years for LeBron James to be able to do a movie, but hey, whatever. I mean, see, Jordan was in the middle of his NBA career as that movie was being released. The movie was out when he was winning when he's on his second stint of a three-peat, so whatever. Anyways, that is the big news for that. He's going to be playing Space Jam 2. I'm excited. You're excited. Who's not excited for Space Jam 2? It's kind of like The Incredibles 2, which is we're waiting for so long. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. Yeah. But in other news regarding the NBA, not in a good way, in a bad way, I think some of you remember Tim Donaghy, as he was the guy working kind of under the table with bets and basically betting on NBA games and trying to rig them to make sure a certain team wins, gives them an advantage with bad calls, so on and so forth. And, of course, that investigation was well over a decade ago, and Donaghy was actually saying the NBA fixed games. Well, something else, it kind of rekindled again as ESPN reported that Tim Donaghy fixed games while working as a referee of the league. It came back again through the ESPN words, I guess. I think it may have been some sort of special or so. I'm not entirely sure what it was. Maybe it was just an article. I'm unaware. But it was in 2008 when Donaghy was sentenced to 15 months in prison and 3 years of supervised release after he pleaded guilty to conspiracy to engage in wire fraud and transmitting between information through interstate commerce, all due to in the NBA. And so he even said that, like, he tried to put David Stern, the former commissioner, under the bus about it, thinking he knew all about it, and he had a say in what was going on. And it was obviously that 2002 Western Conference Finals Game 6 that everyone knows about between the Kings and the Lakers, and where there was 27 free throws in the fourth quarter alone to the Lakers, and where people were like, this is the most rigged game they've ever seen. So it all leads to that one infamous game, of course. But regardless, it seems to me that Donaghy's reappearance, I guess, in the news got the NBA wanting to make a statement about the allegations about them rigging games. Of course, NBA is going to be in a what's the word I'm looking for? Going to be in a something control. It's going to be like trying to control the media, not damage control. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. They're trying to damage control the whole situation, not get more of a bad rep as it is. So how that's going down mainly is just them saying, hey, we had nothing to do with this. They literally said this. It was all a decade ago. This all was figured out way before, a long time ago, so we don't need to go through this again. Everything he said is false. Basically running down to we've already dealt with this, why are we bringing it back up? But, I mean, we kind of had, like, it's, it's news. I mean, it's a huge thing if you actually did rig games. So it's something to think about. But regardless, that's kind of how all that went down. But we are going to take another short break. And when we come back, I am going to do some bold predictions of who is going to be 1 to 8 in the Western Conference and 1 to 8 who's going to be in the Eastern Conference. So we'll be right back right after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. It's time for way too early post All-Star Game predictions for the NBA playoffs. Now, I will start with the Western Conference since, it's so much easier in the first four. But here goes. Here goes my predictions. Number 1 seed stays with the Golden State Warriors. Shocking, I know. I mean, honestly, my prediction, they're going to win the NBA Finals again, making it a three-peat, making everybody sad again except for Warrior fans and bandwagon fans, but granted. Moving on, I honestly see Denver holding on to that 2nd seed. It seems like Oklahoma City's right behind them in the long term, but I think Denver's going to hold on to it and be an unsuspected workhorse when it comes down to getting to the Western Conference Finals. I see a Golden State Warriors Denver Nugget Western Conference Finals in the future. Then we have the so now the question is, who's going to be the 3rd seed? It seems like it's going to stay with Oklahoma City, and I'm going to stick by that. The first 3 are going to stay the same. I don't think they're changing. As for the next 5th seed, the 4th seed, it could stay with Portland, but I'm going to go with Houston. I think Houston's going to jump them. Honestly, I think Portland's going to get jumped twice, by Houston and Utah. So Houston at number 4, Utah number 5, Portland at number 6. And get this, Los Angeles Clippers at number 7. And the Los Angeles Lakers at number 8. The San Antonio Spurs will be knocked out of the playoffs. And that's that. The Lakers will go into LeBron playoff mode and squeeze in to the 8th seed of the Western Conference playoffs. And we will see in the first round LeBron's Lakers versus the Golden State Warriors in what is basically a finals rematch from the year prior, because it was LeBron's team versus Golden State Warriors. It's always been LeBron's team versus Golden State Warriors. That's just how it's always been. So with the Lakers winning and getting into the playoffs of the number 8 seed, I just see that happening as a foregone conclusion. But I do see a sweep though for the Warriors beating the Lakers. Even though LeBron's there, I think this is going to be the first time since 2010 we will not see LeBron in the NBA Finals. That's right. We will not see LeBron. LeBron's been in the finals since 2011 to now. This might be the season where it ends. That streak ends. And even if the Lakers don't make the playoffs, LeBron hasn't missed the playoffs since 2004. Think about that for a second. What were you? Do you remember yourself in 2004? I was 9 years old. I'm 23 now. 2004, I was 9 years old. And that was the last time LeBron missed the playoffs. 2005 to now, 13 years in a row, he's made the playoffs. And then at 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18, the 2018, 2011, 2018 season, 8 years in a row, we've seen LeBron in the finals. I mean, so how do you count this last season? Is it the 17-18 season? So it's it's kind of a confusing thing how it's all could be. It's always so confusing when it goes into 2 different years. But I have a gut feeling we're not going to see LeBron in the finals again. Not this year, anyways. I mean, he went to the Western Conference. I think he knew what he was getting himself into. Now, moving on to the Eastern Conference. Now, this is where it's getting a little bit interesting because we have a tight race up there in the top. I'll just tell you who's up there right now. With 44 wins, Milwaukee Bucks are first. Number 2 is Toronto with 43. Indiana is number 3 with 38. Philadelphia is number 4 with 38, but they have 21 wins compared to the 21 losses compared to the 20 losses Indiana has, hence why they're below Indiana. 37 wins for the Boston Celtics. Brooklyn Nets have 30 wins. Charlotte Hornets with 27 wins. Detroit with 26 wins. That is the 8. And now, just to understand my thought process through all this, we're also going to be looking at the Orlando Magic, who are 9th at the moment, Miami 10th, and even Washington at 11th. But I might have to rule them out entirely. But the question is, who's going to take the first seed? Is it the Milwaukee Bucks or the Toronto Raptors? Thing is, since 2012, every single year has not been back-to-back first-place winners. Like, every year has been a different first-place team in the Eastern Conference. So, with that being said, I'm going to stick with Milwaukee at number 1. Yes, I do. Toronto will stay at number 3. Philadelphia will jump over Indiana and be number 3. So, the first 3 are Milwaukee, Toronto, and Philadelphia. I feel like the Pacers will hold on to the number 4 based on how well they're playing. Boston will not move anymore. Boston's staying at number 5. Brooklyn will stay at number 6. Now, 7 and 8. I don't see the Charlotte Hornets nor the Detroit Pistons making it. I see Orlando jumping into the number 7 seed based on their momentum right now, and Miami Heat, based off this is Dwayne Wade's final goodbye season, and they're going to try to get him to the playoffs one last time. So it will be Milwaukee versus Miami in the first round, Toronto and Orlando in the second, so on and so forth. But yes, I don't see the Detroit Pistons or the Charlotte Hornets holding on to a playoff spot just because of the fact they have those spots. Doesn't mean they're going to guarantee stay them because Charlotte has 27 wins, Detroit with 26. Orlando has 27 wins themselves. They're only below them because they have 32 losses compared to the Detroit and Hornets 30 losses apiece. Miami only has 31 losses compared to the others. It's anybody's ball game in that 4 teams right there between Charlotte, Detroit, Orlando, and Miami. I just see Orlando and Miami, the 2 Florida teams, bouncing the Charlotte team and the Detroit team. I just see that as the biggest possibility. But I have my prediction, obviously, the Warriors will win the West. But the question is, who will win the East? You know, some people say the 76ers, after getting Tobias Harris, they have a good shot at it. Milwaukee with Giannis and his MVP-like season. Same with Kawhi Leonard. But if I had to make a choice, we're going to see the Toronto Raptors make it to their first finals appearance. They're going to outlast even the Bucks. They're going to outlast all these other talented teams in the Eastern Conference. And the finals will be Golden State versus Toronto. And who do I think will win? Well, I won't tell you right away. I'll let you know in suspense throughout the whole weekend. That is the show we have today. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Please tune us in on Monday. I might tell you who I see winning the championships, whether it's the Warriors. Yeah, I know. I didn't get you to wait, but you kind of knew already. But regardless, I'm Jeff Malinoff. Have a good weekend, everybody, and have some fun watching basketball.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.